One short phone call exposed my wife right there in the store. Infidelity story. Some betrayals hit you like a slow leak you don't notice until the damage is done. Others crash into you like a brick through a window, shattering everything in a single, blinding moment. For me, it was one short phone call. Just a few rings, right there in the middle of a crowded store, and the truth ripped my marriage wide open. Ryan Matthews had always thought of himself as the steady one. Reliable. Solid. For 6 years, he'd poured himself into his job, working through late nights and high-pressure deadlines. But that morning, he walked down the block with his head low, the autumn wind biting through his coat. He'd just been laid off. The company had been cutting back for months, but he still believed he'd survive the storm. Instead, he was now just another statistic in a city where half the population seemed out of work. He dreaded walking into his apartment. His wife, Megan, was passionate and fiery, a woman who never held back her opinions. When Ryan's salary had been cut last year, she'd exploded. This would be worse. Their mortgage already ate up most of what they earned, and now there would be nothing coming from him at all. Sure enough, Megan's reaction was volcanic. Yelling. Tears. Then the words that burned more than any scream. "What kind of man are you, Ryan? You promised me a future. You begged me for kids. How are we supposed to raise them if you can't even keep a job? God, why did I marry you?" It hurt because, deep down, he knew she'd once loved him for his drive. Back in college, he'd been the ambitious one, the guy who made her laugh until her cheeks hurt, who swore they'd take on the world together. They'd lived in tiny apartments, counted pennies for coffee dates, and still dreamed big. The first few years of marriage had been good, steady work, a modest home, vacations now and then. But slowly, things had slid downhill. Still, Ryan wanted to believe they could turn it around. He promised her he'd find something, anything, fast. The very next morning, he walked the mall, applying at every store. By noon, a big clothing chain hired him on the spot. It wasn't glamorous, not for a guy with a technical degree, but it was a paycheck. He didn't tell Megan it was retail. Instead, he let her believe a friend had pulled strings to get him a role at another firm. For months, he worked himself raw, long shifts, weekends, covering for sick co-workers, anything to keep the mortgage paid. Megan's warmth toward him withered. Their conversations shrank to cold exchanges. But then, something shifted. She began coming home late, smiling to herself, humming in the kitchen. Once, she walked in carrying an enormous bouquet of roses from a client. Ryan had never seen her look so dreamy. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe in them. But the late nights became a pattern, and there were gaps in her stories. Then came the Wednesday that changed everything. Megan's office was closed for a compliance check, but Ryan left early for his shift at the store. The evening crowd surged in for a sale, and Ryan was busy tidying fitting rooms when a laugh stopped him cold. That laugh, light, playful, was one he hadn't heard from Megan in years. He glanced toward the entrance. A woman in a brand new fur coat walked in, her arm hooked through a tall man's. She looked exactly like Megan, except, it couldn't be. She was glowing, leaning into him, their movements so intimate it made Ryan's chest tighten. They moved through the racks, picking outfits for her. He'd hold up a dress, she'd twirl for his opinion. They hugged. She laughed again. Every second felt like a slow twist of the knife. They eventually disappeared into the fitting rooms with an armful of clothes. Ryan tried to focus on his register, but unease gnawed at him. Minutes passed. Stalls opened and closed, but the large one at the end stayed shut. That couple hadn't come out. His heart pounded. On instinct, he pulled out his phone and dialed Megan. From the far end of the fitting rooms, muffled but clear, her ringtone chimed. The floor fell out from under him. He strode to the stall and yanked the curtain back in one sharp motion. A woman in the next line gasped, stepping back. Inside, Megan stood frozen, her blouse half-buttoned, the stranger beside her looking equally shocked. They weren't trying on clothes. Heat roared through Ryan's ears. The man scrambled, but Ryan grabbed him, shoving him into the open. A single punch dropped him to the tile as shoppers shrieked and scattered. Megan pressed herself into the corner, clutching her coat, eyes wide like a cornered animal. "How could you?" Ryan's voice shook with rage. For what? Some clothes and a fur coat? Get off me, she spat. I'm done carrying your dead weight. We're not living, we're just surviving. You promised me more. Her eyes darted to his chest, to the store name tag. Oh, so this is where you work. Pathetic. Security rushed in, hauling Ryan back. As they dragged him toward the exit, he heard the stranger shout, "You're married?" The betrayal had cut both ways. Megan had been lying to them both. Ryan lost the job, but the store didn't press charges once they knew the truth. The divorce was quick and bitter. They sold the condo, split the debt, and went separate ways. Months later, a mutual friend mentioned seeing Megan. She was alone. The man from the store was long gone. Her glow had faded, replaced by a worn, empty look. Ryan didn't care. He'd moved to his hometown, taken a solid new job, and reclaimed a small apartment he'd inherited. For the first time in years, he could breathe. And he knew one thing for sure: traitors didn't belong in the story he was writing for the rest of his life.